The European Union is one of the greatest achievements in the last century for global cooperation and integration. This is the reason why we should ensure its continuity, maintaining its structures through the use of very relevant mechanisms. This way, we can make sure that the objectives of the Union are accomplished. In general terms, these are some of the main goals: promoting peace and welfare, ensuring a sustainable development, protecting the environment, respecting diversity, and establishing an economic and monetary union with the euro as currency. However, sometimes the members do not respect the European law. This is a problem that must be solved. If a country disobeys the rules, there must be a punishment, but great authority can lead to countries not joining or even leaving the Union, as it is happening with the Brexit. One of the most recent cases is the Italian budget. We are currently watching and hearing news about the issue. The Italian government is confronted with the European Union because they have passed a budget that increases the deficit, and it is not compatible with the Stability and Growth Pact of the Union. The Commission asked Italy to remake the budget, but the minor changes made did not seem to be enough in Brussels. Now it seems that the Italian government is willing to negotiate only if the social measures taken are maintained. To make us an idea, the public deficit would mean that each Italian citizen would have a debt of 38,000 euros. The problem arises because in the European Union, the monetary policy is decided by the European Central Bank, which means that countries do not have any influence on it. However, fiscal policy is determined by each nation, and both of them must be coordinated. If Italy's deficit increases considerably, it could affect all European Union members due to fiscal policy externalities. In the following days, we will see what happens with this issue. This case has drawn our attention, and it has led us to our working thesis. Which are the mechanisms used by the European Union institutions with disobedient countries?
The European Commission is the institution in charge of ensuring that all the European members comply with the stated rules, and it is also in charge of applying several legal actions against the disobeying countries. Now we will analyze the different phases of this procedure. The Commission is able to perceive the different and possible infractions, making use of a wide range of sources, from its own investigations to the reports set by individuals, firms, or other entities. So, if the affected member state does not adopt the needed measures to adapt to the European legislation, then the Commission will start a formal infraction procedure. So, first of all, the Commission will send an emplacement letter to the disobeying country in order to request them more information about the case, and that country will have a limited period of time to answer back. Then, secondly, if the Commission arrives to the conclusion that that member state is breaking the rules, then it can send a formal petition requesting a fulfillment of that legislation, where it has to explain why they think that country is disobeying the European legislation. Thirdly, if still the country does not correct its behavior, the Commission can send the case to the Court of Justice. In that situation, if the member state still does not communicate the reasons why it is not introducing the measures to rectify the situation, the Commission can ask the court to impose sanctions to that country. Finally, if the Justice Court determines the disobedience of the state, the national authorities will be forced to adopt the needed measures in order to adapt to the final judgment. However, if the country keeps misbehaving, the case will go back again to the Justice Court, and now they will impose an economic sanction, taking into account the relevance and consequences of the broken rules, the period of time during which the country did not correct the situation, and also the capacity of the state to pay the sanctions to make sure that they have a deterrent effect.
It appears that the Constitutional Tribunal took decisions which are not currently being complied with by other institutions of the state. And there are measures that have been taken by the newly elected Polish legislature that affect its functioning. Today we have decided that the Commission will carry out a preliminary assessment on this matter under the rule of law framework. We are taking this step in light of the information currently available to us, in particular the fact that binding rulings of the Constitutional Tribunal are currently not respected, which I believe is a serious matter in any rule of law dominated state. I'm also conscious of the recent reform of the media law, which raises issues pertaining to freedom and pluralism of the media. I would like to recall that the rule of law, as defined in the rule of law framework, requires the respect for democracy and for fundamental rights, and that there can be no democracy and respect for fundamental rights without respect for the rule of law, and vice versa.
Let's see now how these institutions work in another example and what is the role they play in Brexit. There are 4 institutions that will play a significant role in the Brexit negotiations. The first one is the European Council, that defines the general political direction and priorities of the EU, and it consists of the heads of state or government of the member states, together with its presidents and the president of the European Commission. However, it does not negotiate or adopt EU laws. The second one is the Council of the European Union, that represents member states' governments. It is where ministers below the head of states from each country meet to adopt laws and coordinate policies. Along with the European Parliament, the Council plays a key role in negotiating and approving EU legislation and international agreements. The third one is the European Commission, which is the executive body of the European Union. It is the only institution with the authority to initiate legislation in most areas, though it draws on inputs from a variety of other institutions. Finally, we have the European Parliament, which is directly elected from all the member states. It comprises 751 members, and its role is mainly legislative. On the other hand, there are 2 articles playing a major role in the UK situation, which are the Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty and the Article 218 of the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union. The Article 50 is the only legal mechanism for a member state of the EU to leave. It is a short paragraph in the Lisbon Treaty agreed by all members in 2009, and it sets out the steps a country needs to go through to withdraw themselves from the European Union.
The mechanisms used by the European Union are complex as well as strict and flexible in order to adapt to all different and possible situations. In fact, they act effectively against disobeying behaviors in most of the cases. Nevertheless, it's also true that sometimes an economic sanction is not enough in order to make countries or even firms to reconsider the situation, since they end up relapsing in the same attitudes again, say for example the case of Google. Therefore, and just to conclude, despite of the intricacy already found in these mechanisms, the European Union might consider carrying out new adjustments or modifications in order to adapt to new up-to-date situations and preserve the integration of all its European members.